Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, in City Hall and the TV viewing audience. Welcome, candidates. I'm Mary Odell, representing the League of Women Voters of Muscatine County. This forum is a voter service event. Members of our league see voter service as a top priority. We organize this candidates forum for you, the viewing audience and voters. We want you to know the candidates and make informed decisions and choices when you vote on November 6th. As an organization, we recognize those who are here as candidates willing to serve and to the voters who want to learn. The League believes this makes democracy work. For nearly 100 years, the League of Women Voters has worked tirelessly day in and day out to ensure that all eligible voters have the opportunity and the information to exercise their right to vote. For many Americans, the League is synonymous with candidates forums, voter guides, and election protection. The League encourages you to be enthusiastic about our democracy by voting on November 6th. If you are not registered to vote and want to be, the League has voter registration material here. You can download forms on the Secretary of State's webpage, or you can visit the County Auditor's Office. We believe this public participation adds value and an opportunity for you to hear about topics to which you are interested. Tonight, we will first hear from our 3 county candidates who are running unopposed. We will start with Amy Zebarth, who is running unopposed for County Treasurer. We want to give Amy a chance to speak to you, the voters, in our viewing audience. Amy?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Amy Zebarth, and I'm your Muscatine County Treasurer. I'm just finishing my first term as County Treasurer after serving 16 years as Deputy Treasurer. I love what I do, and I'm extremely proud of the experienced staff that we have and the quality service that we provide. I'm looking forward to continuing that. We're just completing our September tax collections, which will happen again in March. We also process motor vehicle registrations, title transfers for all county residents. I'm responsible for investing the county funds, and I'm thankful for the higher rates and the great local banks that compete for our funds. All of our staff are now passport agents, so we can assist you in any new applicants or forms for the renewals. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them tonight, or feel free to stop in the office, contact me by phone or email, and I'd be happy to answer anything you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Next, we will hear from Santos Salcido, who is running unopposed for County Board of Supervisor in District 1. Santos?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity and putting this all up for us. I'm a lifelong resident. I've lived here in Muscatine for 43 years. I have been employed at Monsanto, which is now Bayer, for the last 22 years in project engineering department, and I work as a project manager. I taught college for over 10 years in manufacturing and welding while still being employed. I run a youth group for boxers and youth at-risk children on the south side of Muscatine. I'm in my 3rd year of City Council at large for the City of Muscatine, and I am very enthusiastic and very excited about this county supervisor role, being able to be a part of the Muscatine County in a larger form than what I am in the City Council. And my passion is around making sure that we are able to keep our unemployment rate low, continue to be able to provide safety for our public safety residents, and continue to be able to keep a balanced budget for what we have. I am excited to be part of this board and be part of the Board of Supervisors coming forward, and I hope that I'm able to get your vote November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last unopposed candidate is Jeff Sorensen, who is running for County Board of Supervisor, District 5.
Thank you, Mary. Again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the viewers at home for taking the time out of your busy schedules to host these events and to watch these events because they're very important, voter education, to get to know your candidates. I'll do just a quick brief background for folks that don't know me. I'm not a lifelong resident of Muscatine, unlike Santos. I've been here for 30 years. I was looking at that today. 30 years ago in 1988, my wife and I moved our family here, came to work for the Band-Aid Corporation. I worked there about 10 years. Left there for a brief bit, went out to Des Moines for a few years. We didn't like that area. Came back to H&I here for about 6 years. And for the last 12 years, I've owned and operated my own small business in the area. I talked about, you know, kind of the county and what I looked for in the goals over the next few years. I think one of the things of the County Board of Supervisors, I hope to carry on kind of the legacy of good conservative fiscal government at the county level. We kind of get dealt a number of hands, and I think over the years the county supervisors have done a great job of planning for the future and kind of dealing with what comes at us, and I can hope to continue that. And again, I hope for your vote and look forward for your participation in the election. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll now move on to our county races where there is more than one candidate. We'll start with the county recorder position. Our candidates here are Sarah Bodeman-Hurst and Cass Kelly. I want to start by giving each of you a chance to tell the audience about yourself, followed by written questions from the audience. My worry was we wouldn't have enough questions. We have way too many questions. But you'll have 2 minutes to start. Sarah, would you like to start?
Sure. My name is Sarah Bodeman-Hurst, and I'm the current Muscatine County Recorder. I've been with Muscatine County for 20 years. 18 of those have been in the Recorder's office. In the last 3 years, I've gone through all of the Recorder certification classes and updated on all my license and certifications. I am a notary, and, excuse me, I have also lowered the budget in my office by cutting one part-time position. I believe that we still are doing fast, precise, efficient customer service, and I hope to continue to do that throughout the next coming election years.
Okay, thank you. Cass?
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. The Office of County Recorder was created by the first Legislative Assembly of the Territory of Iowa in 1839. Records continue to maintain official records of documents affecting real estate in order to disclose information about all real estate transactions. The Recorder's Office is not an office you hear a lot about. Our county office is small, it's at the end of the hall, and unless you need something, it's generally ignored. So why would I want to be in that office, and better yet, why would you want me to be in that office? As anyone who knows me will tell you, I'm trustworthy, hardworking, have proven leadership skills, organized to the point of some people's aggravation, and I embrace technology. I'm devoted to Muscatine County. I served as a supervisor for 12 years. I know how county government works, along with the working knowledge of the budget and the budget process. But let's put all that aside. Those are great qualities, and I've worked very hard to get to where I'm at today. I want to talk to you about the big picture, the milestones of your life, such as vital records, births, marriages, and deaths, lands and records management, property deeds, mortgages, and for you veterans, your discharge papers or your DD-214s. Where are the documents noting those milestones? They're in the Recorder's office. I'm the best person for you to trust to ensure your life milestones and those of your family are properly documented, updated when needed, and always secure and safeguarded. Your milestones are important to you and to the history of this county. I have the skills that are needed to operate that office in an efficient manner. Let us not lose sight of the importance of that little office down at the end of the hall and the recorder that is making sure that it's done right. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have quite a few questions, so I'm going to try and consolidate a couple of them. But the first question is is the county recorder's office properly funded? So Cass, this time we'll start with you.
I do believe so, yes. As Sarah said, she did cut the one half-time person, but the recorder's office also has money that comes in through fees and things that they charge. So yeah, I think it is properly funded. And the county, the taxpayers are paying that bill, and the Board of Supervisors, as always, has always done a very good job of making sure that the funds are there for them.
Okay. Amy? Excuse me, Sarah.
We are currently funded, well-funded. Anything we've ever asked the board for, they've complied to try to help and get us the technology that we need to stay updated with the current systems that everybody's using.
Thank you. The next one is on several, and it relates to management style. And one alludes to accounting background, and so basically, what is your management experience and that you have which would benefit this position? So this time we'll start with Sarah.
I've been in the county recorder's office for 18 years, and during those 18 years, most of the time I have spent doing the reports and the day-to-day balancing of that office. So that's pretty much where my background comes from, and doing the reports day-to-day and every month.
Okay, thank you. Cass?
I think I've got 12 years of very good accounting experience working at the county and the huge budget that is there. And then it's also divided down into those different departments. So, and I do the books for the VFW and for the auxiliary. So, yeah, I'm pretty familiar with being able to do the accounting part of it.
Okay. The next question is, as recorder, is there a project that would benefit the community that you have done or would do, and what would that project be? So this time we'll start with Cass.
Actually, yes, I've given this a lot of thought, coming from the nonprofit world. My first goal would be to get as many veterans as possible to get their DD-214s recorded. Recording the DD-214 it's a free service, but it's not done automatically, so it does have to be brought in. This is a very important document to the veteran and to the family of the veterans. As a life member of the VFW Auxiliary, I would not be able to volunteer my time to this type of organization without my brother's DD-214 and his service in Vietnam. So these volunteer opportunities and the different veteran support organizations would be lost to these families and to the veterans if this document is misplaced. This is also a valuable document for the future family genealogist to be able to note their family history and the history of the citizens of Muscatine County.
Thank you. Sarah?
Over the last few years that I've been recorder, we have gone through and digitized pretty much most of the land record books to preserve them for the future. I would like to continue doing that, as well as updating our indexes so that everything is current throughout. We've had multiple systems from the time that the recorder's office was put into place, and since then you've had 3 or 4 different ways of actually indexing those land records. I am going back right now and trying to index those so they're all formatted the same to make it easier for everybody to be able to research and have those records available.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with Sarah. What priorities do you have for the working staff in this position?
The priorities I would have for my staff are just to make sure that they keep trained and up to date on all of the current Iowa codes and rules of the vital records, to make sure that everything is done legally and efficiently and with a good customer service.
Okay. Cass?
The same thing. You can't top that. And the customer service, I believe, is very important, because it is the taxpayers that are coming in and asking to have these things done or to things looked up and made copies of. So, yeah, you need to make sure that you do provide that good community service.
Okay, the next question, there are 3 of them. The Office of the Recorder is a full-time elected position. Should the recorder be required to hold daily hours? The next one also talks about working, how many hours should should the recorder spend in the office similar kinds of things? So Cass, I believe we start with you.
Okay.
Not sure. If
That's
a-
okay. Okay, so the hours in the office, yes, it's a full-time position. It's 40-plus hours. I believe my devotion to the job and to the county is recognized by both parties and past recorders that have held this position as the department head. That is your responsibility to be in that office and accountable to the citizens of Muscatine County.
I agree. I do work that position as a full-time job. I take vacation just like anybody else does, sick time. I'm the current backup to both departments. So if one of the girls is gone, I do that job for the day. I also am a big person of waiting the counter. I don't let that just be to my employees. I take big responsibility and respect for people that come into my office.
Next question is, if you could make a change in the recorder's office, what would it be? And Sarah, I believe we start with you.
As of right now, I don't think there's anything huge that I would change in our office. Most everything that's in our office is mandated by Iowa code and by the state. So you're very limited on what you can and cannot do in that office.
Okay. Cass?
I'm trying to recall if there's a video camera inside that office. If there isn't, there should be. There's a great deal of, there is? Okay, so then, no, I wouldn't, there wouldn't be any changes that I can think of right now as well, so.
Okay. And then the last question is, for the incumbent, what 3 accomplishments in the office are you most proud of? And for the challenger is, if elected, what 3 new or different policies would you prioritize? And I believe we start with Cass.
Okay, so what would I prioritize? That would be something I would have to actually get in the office and work it before I can say that, this is more important than something else. Although like I said earlier, customer service is extremely important. And being in the office that 40 hours a week is very important because it is a full-time job. And just making sure that you are considerate of the employees and their time and their time off. So beyond that, I would actually have to be in that office to make sure if there was anything different that I would want to see.
Okay. Sarah?
During my first term, I have continued, like I said, to digitize all of our land records. I've also cut our budget tremendously by not hiring a part-time position. This saves the county thousands of dollars in wages, not to mention what they've saved in not having to replace computer systems for that position as well. And we also are making sure that everybody is cross-trained in our office so that if you come in and somebody is at lunch or somebody is on vacation, everybody can do what you need them to do.
Okay, thank you. We'll now have closing statements, and then you guys are done. So we will start with Sarah.
I would like to thank the county for giving me the last 18 years, 20 years actually, of employment. I am very proud of the work that I've done in that office and hope to continue to do so for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Yes?
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum. I've lived in Muscatine County since 1971. I'm married. We have 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren. Being raised on a farm, I understand hard work. I have worked in a factory, owned and operated a small business, and the executive director of a nonprofit, working with citizens to improve the quality of their lives. This has taught me responsibility and working hard to get the job done and learning the importance of helping others. I've been a board member on many local boards holding different levels within their structure as a volunteer and even as appointments. For 12 years, I served as a Muscatine County supervisor, learning the nuances of county government. This evening, my hope is that you were able to recognize my devotion to serving the residents of Muscatine County. That being said, I would be honored if you would vote for me, Cass Kelly, on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you. Our next segment, we will have the two candidates running for county attorney, Alan Ostergen and William Bill Tharp. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. So we'll start with Alan.
Okay, thank you. I'll echo everyone's thanks to the League of Women Voters and to the people who are here. Sometimes when you work in local government, you don't really know if anybody really cares about what you're doing. And here's some evidence that people care. And for the people who are watching at home, you care. And that's really important. And it's gratifying to me, and I'm sure the other people who are in public service, to know that there are people who are interested. I've had the great privilege to be your county attorney for the last 8 years. And I was an assistant county attorney for 13 years before that. So next Saturday, I'll mark 21 years in law enforcement serving this community. And it's been a great ride, and I've loved every minute of it. There's been a lot of long nights and weekends and a lot of hard work and cases that were human tragedies that ended up in the court system. But what we do is really important. If you don't know what the county attorney does, the county attorney is your chief law enforcement officer. And so, the police, the sheriff, everybody who's investigating criminal cases, and they file criminal charges, those cases end up in my office to be prosecuted. And so I work with a system of local law enforcement people who are doing great work. It's a privilege to work with them. And ultimately, the buck stops on my desk, where I prosecute or my assistants prosecute those criminal cases. We also have a really important role in juvenile well-being. Juvenile delinquency, when kids have done things that would be a crime if committed by an adult, and juvenile dependency, cases where children have been exposed to abuse and neglect, where there needs to be some sort of intervention because a child is not in a safe place. So my office represents the interests of everybody in this community to see that justice is done in those juvenile court cases. That's enormously important work. The last big area that we do is representation of the county. It is an organization. So thank you for being here tonight.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you. To begin, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the members here in Muscatine County and everyone in attendance or watching by any other means, and my colleague Alan Ostergren. Alan and I were both graduates of Drake Law School. He graduated 2 or 3 years before I did, and so I'm very privileged here to talk as a candidate. I'm Bill Tharp. I live in West Liberty, and I'm a third-generation resident of Muscatine County. My mom's out there. She's the valedictorian of the class of 1966 of West Liberty. And I'm married to the finest lady that's ever walked this earth, Marshana Tharp. And we've got 3 kids: Mary, who's 12, Ben, who's 10, and Rachel, who's 7. I decided to offer to change positions from my private law practice to become the Muscatine County Attorney as true public service to help Muscatine County and to help my friends, parents, coaches, and their families. Muscatine County government and its people need a lot of help, and they need it right away. I am not doing this to get into politics to try to move on to another job. I've been called right now to take care of problems, make our county safe, and to improve the lives of people. The Muscatine County Attorney, as Alan said, is a very important position in our county, similar to how a good lawyer is very important to any business or person. We need someone that can help others to solve difficult problems and give trustworthy advice. In my practice, among many other things, I represent over 75 different businesses. I'm there to help them start their businesses, give them advice, write contracts, and litigate those contracts if necessary.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to try and combine a few of the questions. So the first one is, how do you feel your background prepares you for this position of county attorney? If you talk a little more about experience, jury trials, that type of thing. So I believe we start with Bill.
Oh, my experience is the county is kind of a hybrid of a regular business and then a nonprofit corporation. And so what I've done is I represent over 75 different businesses, and I take them from the start to finish. I write their contracts, and if there are problems, I litigate those contracts. There's nothing that I push away. And along with that, I feel very honored to be a trusted advisor and litigator to handle those problems for my clients, because they wouldn't come back if they didn't. And also, I think that it's important to stay current on the law along with that type of litigation experience. And so, although I have not had as many trials, it's kind of an interesting situation as a lawyer, that when you start out, they want to see if you're willing to go ahead and try the case or not. And if you're willing to try the case, then the next one settles a lot easier. My opponent, in his case, has had 154 charges that have gone to trial in the last 5 years. Of those, 92 came back with a not guilty verdict. That means that 2 out of 3 people that went to trial are walking free. And also, as for, that's not just the county, but if we take Alan individually, he had personally set 57 of those not guilty verdicts while securing only 40 convictions during this time.
Okay, thank you. Alan?
So I've been in law enforcement, like I said, for 21 years, and I can't think of any better experience to be county attorney than having been county attorney for the last 8 years. The statistics that my opponent just cited are not entirely accurate or at all accurate, quite frankly. So my office clears about 1,500 indictable criminal cases every year. My assistants and I try some of those cases. I have personally tried over 100 felony jury trials. We get successes, we get justice in those cases. There are some cases just simply have to be tried. There are some cases that you just have to put in front of a jury, and we accept a process where if a jury says that we don't have enough evidence, that's what we do as professionals, that we accept the verdict of the community, and I don't bemoan that. But I have the experience of standing up in court in front of you and your fellow citizens in this county and presenting cases to them. I actively try cases. I'm personally responsible in our office for the prosecution of all felony crimes of violence. So when a child is sexually abused, that case ends up on my desk. I prosecute those cases. I think it's my responsibility as a leader to take on some of the toughest work that we have in the office. And I do that every day.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how would you keep the county fine collections in the hands of the attorney office and not a third-party collection agency? And what benefits do these fines, what benefits are they to the county?
Right, so fine collection is a program that I instituted in my office several years ago. And a lot of times people have fines, restitution, surcharges and whatnot that they owe as a result of being a defendant in a criminal case. And the problem that people get into is if they don't pay on time, they lose their license, they can't register motor vehicles. It's a bad situation for everybody. So we started a court debt collection program with the support of the Board of Supervisors, including one to my right. And we're doing great work. We're on pace this year to collect over $1.1 million in delinquent court debt. And that does a lot of important things. It brings some money in to the county general fund. We get a certain percentage of what we collect, and that's more money than it costs us to run the program. So it ends up reducing the net cost of my office to the taxpayers by about $100,000. The thing that's really a lot more important is this. We're collecting restitution for victims of crime. If you've had your checks stolen and money taken out of your account, we're out there trying to get that offender to pay that money back to you, or medical bills or any of those things. And we're also helping people get valid. If they get on a payment plan and stay current, they can get their license back, they can get their car registered, they can drive to work, they can be legal, they can be insured. We want to see that. We want insured legal drivers on the road. It's a huge benefit.
Thank you. Bill?
Thank you. Instead of looking at this with new eyes as a prosecutor, I have unique experience in my practice of debt collection. When I finished law school, I was in Des Moines, and I worked at a firm called Wetch and Abbott, and they represented the 5 biggest credit cards in the state of Iowa. And so they were able to go out and collect all across the state. And so in addition to understanding the law in and out on collections, also I understand that there is a motivation to make sure that people have the ability to get their license back, because it just steamrolls. If someone can't make a payment, then they can't get to their job. If they can't get to their job, they can't provide for their family or pay for the fines. Less important than being able to provide for their family, which would allow them to turn or make them more likely to turn over to crime. And so, although I do know how to have a hammer with the collection system, I am very soft-hearted and understanding as to people need to get to work and they need to be able to work, and so long as they are making those payments, I believe in that system, although what we have now can easily be honed much better.
Thank you. We'll start with you on this one, Bill. How do you see the role of the county attorney in relation to the sheriff and police departments?
That's an interesting question. The sheriff's office and the police departments are trained in the police academy, but they receive maybe a day and a half of constitutional law. In law school, we need to go through two semesters, an entire year of the 3 in constitutional law. So it's my responsibility to make sure that I am up on all of the laws and the changes, and then to forward that on to those particular offices. After that, I would be very respectful, as I'm sure any of you would, or I would, as to not going directly to the officer, but speak to the chief or the sheriff about the situation, because if things aren't done correctly, what's the point? We've just wasted a lot of money on resources in law enforcement being out there, and we've also wasted money by attorneys trying to prosecute the case. And that's money, those are man hours that we won't get back. And so it's important to assess the case, look at it to see, do we have the evidence or do we not have the evidence? And if we don't have the evidence, let's let law enforcement know how to do better for next time to get the conviction, as opposed to barking up the wrong tree and then just losing man hours and wasting time, and also putting a defendant through a system that they should not.
So my relationship with the police, the sheriff's office, is one of the most enjoyable things about what I do. And one of the things I really like is the relationship at the top level with the executives of those agencies, but also all the way down to officers on the street. I work very closely with your local law enforcement executives, and I'm very proud that I've been endorsed by Sheriff C.J. Ryan for re-election. That's a relationship that really means a lot to me, because I have tremendous respect for CJ. It also is the respect going all the way down to the officers who are making traffic stops, making arrests. From time to time, I like to do a ride-along with them, showing up at a crime scene. I'm a hands-on county attorney. I think some of the most interesting conversations I've ever had have been at 3 in the morning with police officers and working on a criminal case and taking responsibility to get it to where it needed to be. So it's vital that the county attorney, it's not just your chief law enforcement officer on paper, it's truly in the kind of leadership and personal connections that you have with people in law enforcement. You can't just show up and say, I have a piece of paper that says I'm county attorney, therefore do what I say. You have to build up respect and trust, and that takes years. And I've got 21 years of doing that with the people who put a badge on and a gun on and go out every day to do the work.
Thank you. This one question doesn't have who it should be addressed to, but I think it's most appropriate for the two of you. And I'm not even sure I 100% understand the question, so
this should be fun then.
Hopefully you'll be able to
we
clarify
can make
it
something
more.
up then, it sounds like.
Where do you stand on allowing sales of retail CBO in
I
Muscatine.
think it's CBD is what the
CBD,
person's asking,
okay,
and it
thank
probably
you.
is directed to us.
So CBD in Muscatine County, and as IDPH, Iowa Department of Public Health, has stated, they have no jurisdiction over these products, and then the rest is a little hard to read, but, so hopefully you can understand the question better than I.
Okay.
And we start with you.
Okay. So this is a question that I hope somebody asked last week at the legislative forum, because CBD's cannabidiol oil is something that really just needs to be directed to state lawmakers. Right now, those products, as the way the code reads, are not legal for sale outside of a regulatory and licensing scheme that is in the process of being put in place. Sometime by the end of the year, there'll be dispensaries that are legal to operate, and a doctor for certain conditions can prescribe those products. When we send those products, this is really important for people to understand, when we send those products to the state crime lab to be identified, we get a lab report back that says that they're marijuana and that they're illegal to possess. So that's what I got to go by right now. If legislators want to change the law on that, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I have no stake in that, and you're not going to see me down at the State House with a sign protesting if they want to do that. The way the law is written right now, those products aren't legal. There's a certain carve-out for medical uses that's coming very soon. And if the legislature wants to change the law, that's perfectly fine.
Bill?
This stems from a January taking of the CBD oil, or alleged CBD oil. And what happened in that process was that property was taken from someone else, and it wasn't tested, and then afterwards it was destroyed, and there was no criminal prosecution. Reason why that's so important to all of you is because you have a Fifth Amendment right against having your property taken, and it's also given to the states through the 14th Amendment through the Privileges and Immunities Clause. That's how this question comes up. And so instead of having that type of prosecution or anything, someone in your community, in our community, had their property taken, and then it was destroyed. There was no criminal prosecution, no civil prosecution, and then it ended up just having things destroyed and left there. That's not something anyone would want to do, even if they had wood. Now, as for the legality of it, this is something that in other states like Colorado, this is part of the Department of Agriculture, that they determine the difference between hemp and marijuana in the cannabis plant. And I do agree in that extent that there needs to be a lot of work done at the State House there by the legislatures to determine what is permissible and what is not. But as for just going out and taking it and then not making any kind of investigation, that's just clearly wrong.
Thank you for explaining that for me.
Sure, a little science tonight.
Yes.
Hopefully there won't be any math on this test, okay? I didn't bring a calculator.
I'm pretty good at math, but, okay, the next question is a little bit, I'm going to combine a couple again. Specific, if elected or re-elected, what specific kinds of legal matters would you personally handle, because I know you have an office, and would you consider being an employee or an advisor for a company while you are a county attorney? And we'll start with Bill.
I would not be an advisor to any other entity. My job would be to be the county attorney. What I see as the job is, it's been said that it's the chief law enforcement officer and that's all that we do. That's very, very incorrect. The recorder needs to stay current on the law. She needs to be able to ask questions when issues come up that are not easily solved. And right now, there is no one in the county attorney's office that can do that. Same thing for the treasurer. Right now, there is no one in the county attorney's office with experience regarding taxation. The auditor. Right now, there is no one in the county attorney's office with experience that's even done a subdivision, which is something that I've done in my practice. All of these things I've done. And also for the Board of Supervisors, it's a very important role, because they need advice as to how to effectively make a statute that is going to stick and it's going to do exactly what they want to do. Because if they don't have good advice If all they have is a prosecutor, someone who only knows criminal experience, then a lawyer will be able to go in and say this statute or this ordinance or regulation is void for vagueness, and then all of that time was wasted. The county attorney needs to be completely available to all of the different offices of the county so that we don't get sued.
Thank you. Alan?
So I intend to, first of all, I do want to keep on prosecuting criminal cases. On the civil advice part, I want to address that because I am the person that answers those questions. And Amy calls me, and Sarah calls me, and zoning calls me, and I answer those questions. Leslie calls me. Now, these are all people who are running their offices well, and when they call, they normally ask a pretty good question, and I answer the question for them. So that is an important part of my job, and it is something that I take responsibility for. Now, I will tell you, the people you have running your various county departments, they're pretty smart, and they're doing a pretty good job. And doing civil work for the different county offices is not a full-time job. It's not, a county attorney cannot justify his existence sitting at the desk waiting for the auditor or the treasurer, the recorder, or zoning, or anybody else to call up with questions. When they call, I answer those questions. If they need research done, I do it. But that's not a full-time job. We are one county attorney and 4 assistants, and we are in court day in and day out. Our bread and butter work is doing criminal prosecution and juvenile work. And it is impossible for somebody to justify spending their time as a county attorney doing that kind of civil work. You need to know the criminal stuff and have the background in civil like I do.
Thank you. I think this is a fairly short question. Who is the actual boss, the county attorney or the county sheriff? This is a question. I'm reading it as is written.
Depends on what you're
Yes.
talking
Wait, is CJ here? Is the sheriff asked that? I didn't see any sneak in and out.
Yeah, right.
Each one has its own jurisdiction. Each one is elected. Each one does its own job. And then we work together to attempt to fill in the holes. There are things that the sheriff's office can do very well, and they need some assistance every now and again. Again, county attorney's office should be working very well and would talk to the sheriff's office because in criminal cases, that's very important. I mean, you can't say that you're not going to talk to one of the head law enforcement officers. People need to be working in tandem, but they're not in cahoots. It's not the same thing. They're quite different entities.
So we've all seen the TV show. In the criminal justice system, the police are represented by 2 separate and equally important groups, right? You can all fill it in all the way up to dun-dun, right? So we work together with the sheriff. The sheriff has things that he's responsible for. He runs a jail. I'm so happy I don't run a jail. What a headache, okay? The sheriff has day-to-day management responsibilities. I don't get to decide which deputy is on first shift and which deputy is on third. That's not my job. I don't go out and buy squad cars and things like that. But when it comes to running a criminal justice system, I am in charge. I have 2 direct powers as county attorney. One is I can order the sheriff to do an investigation of a particular crime and report to me. And the other one is if the county medical examiner and I disagree about whether an autopsy is needed, I win that argument. The doctor has to yield to me. All the other authority I have is based on the position that we have in terms of how the system functions. And that's just words on paper. The real authority I have comes down to the interpersonal relationships that you build up over 21 years, in my case, of working with people. So I would never tell the sheriff that I'm in charge of him. I would tell him there's certain things I serve him, there's certain things he serves me, and we do our job together. And I'm very proud of the relationship I have with CJ and the fact that he's endorsed me in this race.
Just a couple more questions. Are there any community-based ways to address drug violators besides sending them to jail? Alan, we'll start.
So one of the things that I would love to be able to institute in this community is a drug court. The problem we have, census-wise, we would be called a micropolitan community, okay, under about, different ranges there, but under about 80 or 90,000 people. The problem we have is the diseconomy of scale in a criminal justice system of our size. It's hard to get the logistical footprint that we need for running a drug court. I would love to be able to do that. Unfortunately, those drug court dollars have been shrinking statewide, and we are not big enough to attract that kind of drug court. Now, what we do the best we can to plug into other resources. Today, I was in court. I'm not going to say the person's name because there's no reason to embarrass her. A woman who's 37 weeks pregnant, who had been caught by the sheriff's office with 2 ounces of methamphetamine that she was going to go do a transaction. She was about 4.5 months pregnant when she was picked up. Now, we were working hard to find a solution for her. Unfortunately, you know, she's got to get her baby delivered and she's in custody, and we're going to get her into drug court in another county as quick as we can. It's a terrible situation to see somebody like that. We need more resources, okay? I want more things on the continuum between street probation and prison, and talk to your legislators about that.
Okay, thank you. Last question.
May I respond?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you may respond.
okay.
I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Most definitely, there are ways to take care of this, and I can tell you firsthand, as opposed to asking with my hands out. I'd worked in firms, but I started my own solo practice in 2008, which was a terrible time for everyone. You know, the recession hit, people didn't have any money, and of course, when that happens, they're not able to frequent your businesses. But even though that happened in 2008, I was able to run my office. We looked through and we made sure that what were the cost of pens, you know, what were the cost of this and that. And not only was I able to make it through when many others did not, but I actually gave my secretary a raise in the middle of it. And so these things are able to happen. We just need to be resourceful. And so we need to look, how are we spending the money, as opposed to, okay, we're going to definitely need a lot of money, and also to find a different way of doing things. There are a lot of ways that we can take care of this problem, and there are a lot of very smart people that we can talk to help with this problem. But we have to take the time, which I'm willing to do, to go ahead and figure out how to do it, because anybody that thinks that someone that's 18 or 19 years old that gets in trouble and then no longer do they have a life they can look forward to. For example, I would have never been able to sit for the bar exam had I had that problem. And now what does someone that's 18 or 19 years old think if they know that their future is shot? They're going to look a lot lower. They may turn to criminal conduct, because if you're going to act like I'm a criminal and treat me like a criminal, then maybe I'll just be a criminal. We can't have that here. We can't have that. And that's not the future that I see for the people, for my kids and their friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the last question, and we'll start with you, Bill. And again, it's a question that I asked for the recorders. For the incumbent, what 3 accomplishments in the office are you most proud of? And for the challenger, if elected, what 3 new or different policies would you prioritize? So Bill first.
We would start doing civil work. Although there's a basic civil knowledge, if we look through the claims and expenses, everything that comes up in the county is not something that we can just refer on to a civil attorney. That costs money and it increases our taxes. In addition to that, I think that I can tell right away, I'm going to be spending my first 6 months diligently working to update all kinds of policies in the employment law and in each one of the offices, because it's been neglected since 2010 when Dana Christensen, who was the civil attorney that was in the county attorney's office, he up and quit right away and went on to Johnson County to become a prosecutor, and now he's a magistrate judge. He was the one person that knew how to do civil work. Once he was gone, everything else was gone. And so I have a lot of work to do once I'm brought into office, because it's like someone coming in, one of my businesses that comes in and says, hey, Bill, you know, I got this letter, I got a lot of trouble. Yeah, we do. And we've got a lot of paperwork and we've got a lot of sorting things out. And so that's what we do. I don't just tell them, well, it's too far gone. It's, all right, let's get down to it and we'll just set it up and we will take care of it. And that's my plan, and that's very important.
Thank you. Alan?
So there's a lot of things I'm proud of. I want to respond to one thing that was said, though. I do the civil work that needs to be done in my office. I worked with Dana Christensen for 13 years, and he had an opportunity to get a promotion in a bigger county attorney's office where he lived in Iowa City. So he cut about 80 minutes out of his day driving and took a great opportunity to be there. I do that civil work. The three big things I would point to is we made a successful transition to electronic court filing and having a paperless office. The technology revolution that I was able to shepherd the office through with a lot of hard work by my employees and support from the board to make that happen. It's truly remarkable, okay? We don't have paper case files anymore. We're not using county space to store old musty files. We made a real technological leap where instead of going to court with a stack of files, you're going with a laptop. And that turns to another thing I think is an accomplishment, the quality of my people. I have some of the best prosecutors and staff people. I'm very proud of the fact in the last 3 years, 2 of my assistant county attorneys have been appointed to be judges. One just in the last few weeks and one about 3 years ago. I take that as credit to the kind of training and the environment we have. And I'll tell you, we have a statewide reputation for excellence in my office. We train other county attorneys' offices. We get called by other county attorneys' offices. I'm proud of what we have statewide, and we're going to keep doing it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll have 1 minute for closing statements. So Alan, we'll start with you.
Okay. The highest and best use I can think of the legal training I was privileged enough to get was to be a prosecutor. I've loved every minute of being here, and thank you for the support that this community has shown me over the years. Being a county attorney, it's a serious job. There's a lot of responsibilities. Serious criminal cases hit my desk every day. I have to train and supervise and lead prosecutors who are junior to me. It's my responsibility to make sure that this criminal and juvenile justice system works, aside from all the civil responsibilities that I take care of. I'm the only person up here who has any prosecution experience whatsoever. That doesn't make my opponent a bad person, but when you make this decision about who should be leading the law enforcement team in this county, I'm going to put up 21 years of law enforcement experience, my felony jury trial experience, the kind of work I do on some of the toughest cases out there. Thank you very much for your support.
Bill?
Well, just really quickly, I do have prosecution experience. I spent some time prosecuting the OWI docket in Polk County when I was in law school. Also, I've prosecuted city cases from down when I was in Ottumwa, and then also around when I was working with Jerry Denning in Wilton. But the situation that I'm in is the same one that in the tornadoes that came through. For everyone that had a chainsaw, they went out and they cleared out the road because there was an emergency. When my grandpas, when Pearl Harbor was attacked, both of my grandpas signed up immediately because they were in need. And the numbers that I'm giving you about of the 154 charges taken to trial by the county attorney's office, 92 of them, people walked completely free. I've got it right here. I mean, anyone can go ahead and look through it, and I invite them to.
Okay, thank you. So our last segment, we have 2 candidates running for County Board of Supervisor in District 2, Bob Howard and Doug Holliday. So we'll have each candidate, again, have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. And we'll start with you, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I want to thank the League, of course, for the opportunity to present my credentials to the county voters this evening. For those of you who do not know me, those people out there that I don't think there's too many, but I'm a lifelong resident of Muscatine County, and my wife Nancy and I have 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren. I was a partner in Weber & Sons Button Company for 34 years, plus Nancy and I have started and owned several other successful businesses as well, including Heartland Trim currently, which is also a textile-related company started in 1986. I feel I have a strong resume and much valued on-the-job experience to offer our county residents moving forward. My political background include 1 term on the Muscatine City Council, 2 terms on the Muscatine County Board, and have served on over 20 other boards and commissions. Currently, I serve Muscatine County residents on the Muscatine County Conservation Board, Muscatine County E911 Service Board, Muscatine County Emergency Management Commission, Muscatine County Veterans Affairs Commission, and the Muscatine Area Geographic Information Consortium, which most of you know as MAGIC. I also serve on the Milestones Area Agency on the Aging, which is one of 6 state Iowa area agencies and responsible for supplemental elder care for 17 southeastern counties in Iowa, and I am president of that executive board. On top of many years of on-the-job experience, county residents who have followed our board and me have my results to judge. One thing the voters of our county know is exactly where I stand on any issue that's been before our board, and I look forward to continue serving Muscatine County residents going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
Holiday. I'm running for Board of Supervisors in District 2. I'm a lifelong resident. I worked 36 and a half.
Come closer to the mic.
I worked 36 and a half years for the Muscatine County Highway Department.
Bob, give him,
You know,
give him.
yeah, I
Share
think
your
he'll
mic.
There you go. Yeah, sure, Mike.
That's hard for Bob.
I'm Doug Holiday.
There we go.
I've lived in Muscatine all my life. I've worked for the Muscatine County Highway Department for 36 and a half years. I did every job there that they have. I've mowed ditches, I've ran graders, I've run inloaders, I've plowed snow, I've been general foreman, and I've been superintendent. So I have a lot of experience with county roads. The main I'm not a politician. I've never had any political experience other than voting for 45 years. The main reason I'm here is a lot of people in our rural community do not feel like they're getting their fair shake of the deal. And I'm talking about the use of slag on county roads. I hear about it every day. I currently work for the school district as a bus driver, and I drive the roads. Not only was I there to help maintain them for 36 and a half years, I'm driving on them now, and I'm not a fan of slag. Another one of my main concerns is the Muscatine County Fair. It's going downhill every year. They cannot afford entertainment, and they need help. The racetrack and West Liberty Foods are my other concerns, keeping them here. Thank you.
Well, I have 5 questions on slag. So,
Popular topic.
You sure they weren't for the county attorney candidates?
Yeah, right.
they work for the county
I
attorney.
refer.
So currently slag is being used on county roads. Why are we putting it on instead of gravel? Are you aware of any detrimental effects to the residents? And if you could spend another 90 seconds addressing slag.
Which one? Me or Bill?
Oh, I'll start with you, Doug.
The most complaints I've received about the use of slag is it washboards. It's hard to drive on. It's like driving on marbles. It eats tires. And I've had a lot of farmers who've told me they've had their windshields knocked out with it. And I'm sure there's other concerns environmentally with it, but I won't get into that.
Okay, Bob?
I'll do as much as I can in the time allotted. So, first of all, this topic come up approximately 2013. We were going to have the opportunity to when we were going to have the opportunity to deal with it. People were concerned about it, so it come before the board. Our budget for rock on the county roads is approximately $285,000 a year. That's what we budget. Slag costs about $1.70 per ton, whereas the rock is anywhere from $7.55 to up to $10 a ton. So, you know, we get a good savings by using a blend, and which saves the taxpayers anywhere from $170,000 to $360,000 a year. And I'm always thinking of the taxpayer. Now, regarding the issue itself and the use of it, when this came up, one of the big concerns I had as a board member at the time was the safety of it, of any potential downside. So I talked to the Iowa DNR, I talked to Disease Prevention Control down in Atlanta, I talked with state and federal people. Everything I have that I got received back, and I have it in writing, that there was no concerns to be had. Now, they also listed 10 potential usable uses for this product, and one of them was roads. So at the recommendation of the county engineer and the savings we could use, we try to use as much as possible. If I could just add, though, it's not, we don't get to use as much as we'd like, Doug, because more and more companies and people are buying that product to use it because of its benefits, and therefore, we don't always have it available. That's why there's a differential between the cost savings.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we'll start with Bob. A major part of a supervisor's job is influencing decisions made in Des Moines. Please describe your experience interacting with state leaders and name one or two priorities for which you would advocate.
Well, I've been doing community service work for a long time, and being involved in the business community, I'm fairly well known by legislators. So I do have those connections, and I do try to utilize them to the best of my ability. The problem we have with particularly the state is that they don't listen well. And that goes into the next part of that question about topics and things, issues we have. The mental health situation, you know, we talked to them over and over again. That program that they tried to initiate by consolidation is not working so well. The board's had to take action a couple of times trying to keep us solvent and happy with what we're trying to accomplish. For a community like Muscatine that has always been so self-sufficient in that arena, it's sad what we've had to go through with that particular situation. And Mary, you've probably been exposed to some of that. And then it also even worked into the area of the milestones area of the aging that I'm a executive board president of, because there was $500,000 cut out of our budget, and yet the elderly make up the majority of folks here in Iowa. Therefore, we have a real load to take care of. We need more money, not less. So those are the issues.
Doug?
I have no experience with any state legislation. I have no connections there. The only connections I have are in the community, and mostly with the rural people and the farmers.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Doug. What problems and solutions do you see for county residents who find themselves living by animal confinement operations regarding smell and possible contamination?
They've been there for a long time. I don't know that there's any real solutions for that. I live real close to one myself, and the ventilation systems that they now have, I really don't smell much at my house. I'm about a half a mile from one, and it's really not been a concern for me.
Thank you. Bob?
Regarding the hog confinements, it's another area where I've been involved back and forth with the state with questions, and I've also worked with the folks in the state of Wisconsin who's tried to deal with those issues. When I was a kid growing up, and I grew up on a farm, raised on a farm, lived on a farm, and when we smelled the hog confinements of that day, we said money in the bank. So everybody looks at any issue differently. And, you know, one of the things I'm sure that people out in subdivisions are tired of hearing is that, hey, you live in an ag state. So we constantly have to understand that, but we also constantly have to strive to do better. And I know that the state works at it, and there's very little we in the county can do, because the state intentionally regulates that. They don't want locals to get involved in it. And quite honestly, it does keep a little heat off of us. But we have some ideas and thoughts, and I've been working with some different areas of local government to see what we can do, if anything, and I'm not at liberty to discuss that. So.
Thank you. The next question, we have a couple in regard to collective bargaining, and I'll try and combine them. the county board has an important role in the negotiation with its public employees, and was the legislature correct in changing the collective bargaining law? And do you see this as benefiting the county? Was this good? And what are your thoughts on the changes?
Well, I'm not a big fan. It's always a difficult situation to handle, and one of the things that we did that I think has been productive and helpful to both sides is we hired an attorney to take care of all of that. And they've done a good job for both sides. A little sidebar to that, though. We take our job seriously at the county. One of the things we've seen that needed addressed ever since I've been on the board, particularly the last 4 years, is what we could do to make sure that we attracted quality help and to make sure that the help we had was treated fairly so we don't lose them. So we went through a program where we tried to get all the wages countywide brought to the level that was fair and beneficial to not only the employee but the county that's paying the bill, and it's working. So we do what we can do on our end, and then as far as the collective bargaining, we leave that up to our attorney.
Doug?
I totally support the unions. I was a Teamsters Local 238 member for 18 years. Before that, I was the steward. I also am now currently an ASME member, union member, through the bus drivers in the school district. And I totally am against what they changed with the labor laws. And I've also been a superintendent, and I've also been a general foreman, so I've done both sides. So I kind of know how to negotiate and come together on things.
Thank you. The next question is in regard to historic preservation. Where do you see the county role in historic preservation?
I think they're crippling it right now. I'm totally for historical preservation. One example would be the old barn, which has been crippled and is at a standstill, and it's a piece of our history, and I can't see it let it go down the tubes.
Bob?
Well, I'm a proponent, and I actually, we still have the old barn. Didn't go anywhere, Doug. Also, there's going to be restrooms in that area. It's going to be built up more for local citizens to enjoy. We're putting the Conservation Board is putting a playground over in that area. It's going to be built up. It's going to be better than it's ever been before. As far as the preservation, or the Historical Preservation Society, it was our boards over the past 2 terms that actually set up a county preservation commission to handle these areas of concern and interest in that area. And so I think that's a positive thing. I sure don't think it's a negative thing. They've done great work, by the way. I highly commend them, and we've been very supportive. We've given funds, and the way our board works, and I'm proud of this too, is money doesn't get away from us very easy. It's got to be a need and not just a want. When it comes to that area, we have actually given some money, and not all board members agreed, but we've got a lot of things accomplished and more to come. So I don't agree with your statement there, and maybe there's just a misunderstanding of what we've done.
Well, yeah.
Okay, the next question, and we'll start with Bob on this, and I'm combining a couple in regard to the county fair, fairgrounds. So the fairgrounds and West Liberty Foods. What is the status of selling the fairgrounds to West Liberty Foods for their expansion, and is this a way to get the fair out of debt? Is the county giving enough funding to the county fair?
Well, regarding West Liberty Foods, that's really out of the county's hands and the county board's hands. That's something that we're certainly aware of, we're kept abreast of, but we're not in negotiations on. When it comes to funding the fair, again, as with historic preservation, not all board members have been on the same page. I've always been one that believes it should be self-funded, that that we shouldn't be giving money to it. Now, I'm a minority, obviously, because we do give money to it. One thing, though, we did the last 2 years, we've tried to encourage them by offering them a match. If they would go out and they would get a certain amount of dollars in, we'd match that. And so we're trying to get the board itself to take a bigger interest in funding and not just rely on a handout. And they're working at that, and I think they're making progress.
Doug?
I think the board needs to give the fairgrounds the money to get some entertainment, because without the entertainment, they're not bringing in the crowds that they used to bring in. From what I understand, the funding that you do give the fairgrounds is less than it was in the past, and it should be more. It's a community thing. It's the county fair. It's not West Liberty Fair, it's Muscatine County Fair. West Liberty Foods left West Liberty, the town would be in big trouble. From what I've been told is if they can expand, they'll stay right there. If they can expand and they lift to move to a different location, then all the other counties can offer incentives to get them to leave. And it's real important to the city of West Liberty that they stay there.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with Doug. Do you see the county administration building needing to be fixed?
No.
Bob?
We didn't have much of a choice. We either fix it or we'd have to leave. There were some structural problems with it, and you know, hindsight's always 20/20. Long before I was ever on the board, that choice was made to take that building. I would have never done it. I told the folks, I says, I can remember when I was a little boy, that was an overall factory, and my mother worked there, and I sat across the street on that little wall, the county courthouse, and then I'd go up and get her when she got off work. It's been a lot of different things in over 100 years, and it was not adequately probably kept up and taken care of. Maybe that's the reason why the previous owner didn't stay. I don't know. But we've got it functional, and it's working, and we'll see what the future brings.
Thank you. The next several questions, and I'll combine them, are in regard to our mental health system, and we'll start with you, Bob. So one alludes to the fact that we have no psychiatric beds in Muscatine County. What's wrong? Why is that? And that we have a bifurcated system in mental health, and that the county levies the taxes, but because we're now part of a region, the region decides how to spend them. Do you favor that system, or would you encourage changing that system? Do you think we should raise taxes for more mental health services, allow the region to raise taxes? So I know that's a lot in 90 seconds.
It's a lot, and I'm going to simplify some of it. I was not in favor of regionalization the way it went. Our board was not in favor of it. When you live in Muscatine, Iowa, and people know this all over the area, both in western Illinois and eastern Iowa, it's a special place when it comes to the community. People really step up. A lot of donations come from private people. We have a great system here. The regionalization by the state, and believe me, we got some knocking down, drag them out fights over that deal, Mary. But you could not get them to change their mind. They're going to do this, and this is what was going to happen. So they implemented it, and then, of course, what we had was the discrepancy in the dollars everybody was putting on the table between Scott County, Muscatine County. It cost Muscatine County $3 million to take care of people in other counties, you know, Scott County, and that's ridiculous. And, of course, we're trying to get some of that money back to our coffers by changing what we're taking out in our levies. So we're doing the best we can, but we've been stifled with the state. It's working, but it's not working well. Regarding to the beds, my understanding is we've got more beds coming. So we'll see. We'll see how that all works out.
Doug?
My understanding is that Scott County's not paying its share for the use that they get. So I'd be for negotiating with Scott County to at least pay their fair share. It would probably help you guys out a lot.
If that was possible, we could be happy to do that.
right?
We love to negotiate, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and we'll start with you, Doug. How do you see the mid-year budget cuts at the state level in 2017 and 2018 affecting Muscatine County?
Any cuts that, I don't know how much state money you guys now receive, but any cuts would be detrimental to the county.
Well, yeah, we like to have our share, that's for sure. But we have a board that's very fiscally sound, and we're very self-reliant, because you can't count on the state, you can't count on the federal government, and we've had our ups and downs with that. One of the things I'm very, very proud of, and I'll mention that because I know you're going to ask the question at the end, what we're proud of, and that's how we've managed our money. And that's the big deal about being a county supervisor. It's all about the budget. It's all about managing your money and making sure you take care of the needs. And then if you have anything left over, you can take care of some wants. And then you prioritize that stuff. So we try to be totally self-sufficient. And one thing we've done and able to get all the things accomplished that we've done, we've leveraged this low interest rate money we've had. And we've done a really good job of that. I'm very proud of the whole board and all of our staff on what we've been able to accomplish with that. That'll be going away soon, I'm afraid, because interest rates, as the economy grows, inflation grows, you'll see interest rates go up, and we'll be less apt to try to take that. But we certainly used it while it was available.
Thank you. Okay, last question, and we'll start with you, Bob. For the incumbents, you've heard this one before. What 3 accomplishments in the office are you most proud of? And for the challenger, if elected, what 3 new or different policies would you prioritize? So Bob, first.
So is this where I tell you what the things I'm proud of?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So my first year on the board, almost 8 years ago now, one of the things that they'd been wanting to accomplish was to try to take some of the fat out. And when it comes to adjusting the levels of employment that you're taking care of, because that's the gift that keeps giving. You got the wages, you got the retirements, you got all that stuff with it, the medical. So we were able to make that transition. And I feel very responsible for that, because I kept everybody's heels to the fire and was able to accomplish that. Over a 10-year period, that has saved us almost now $1 million. So it was fat. We didn't need it. The officers are all getting along fine without it. And at the time, you thought it was going to be sheer death, right? So we worked our way through that. Some of the other things I'm proud of, as I mentioned earlier, was the wage scales. The first process allowed us to go back then in a few years and look at the wage scales and how we could become much more competitive and get the employees that we have a fair wage. And so we accomplished both of those things. And then the overall, which would be the third or first thing I looked at, is just the overall money management. How we took care of utilizing and leveraging the low interest rates and so forth to get the things done within the framework of the county that needed to be done. And I owe that all to not just myself, but all the other board members at the time. Most of them were self-employed people, entrepreneurial people, and they really know their stuff when it comes to managing. So,
thank you. Doug?
I think managing is really important, but I also think we need to keep in focus that it's a community service. And the 3 things I would focus on is SLAG, the county fair, and West Liberty Foods, and getting the racetrack open in West Liberty again.
So you each will have 1 minute now for a closing statement, and we'll start with you, Doug.
I guess going back to the SLAG, I know it's a cheaper product, and I know it saves a lot of money. I also know that we trucked it by Flowboy from Montpelier to the Johnson-Muscatine County line, and I can't imagine that bill was cheap. I've worked for the county for 36 and a half years, and I would love to work for the community and stand up for the people in the rural county and the old barn. And I hope for your vote in November. Thank you.
Bob?
you bet. Thanks, Mary. And once again, thanks to the league for giving us this opportunity tonight to present our credentials to the county. I ask for everybody's vote. As I said earlier, I know that if you pay attention to the county government at all, watch us on TV or follow me over the years, you know exactly what I stand for, and you know exactly how I vote and how I take my job seriously. And I want to tell you, there's a lot more hours involved with the county board than most people that run for office realize. We divide up, the 5 board members divide up 21 different boards and commissions. That's why I said that I'll have all these that I'm working on currently. So it's not just the simple stuff. There's a lot of other areas in the community we're involved in. And lastly, I've spent over 20 years in community involvement in many different levels. So I think I know the community, I think I know the people in it, and I think I've performed. I'd like to continue to do that for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Well, the League of Women Voters would like to thank all of the candidates for being part of this living democracy. We appreciate the time you've taken to share your views with our viewing audience, all of the people and all the people in Muscatine County. I'd also like to thank the City of Muscatine for providing this space, the Muscatine Community School District, and MPW Digital TV and MCC for making the TV viewing possible. Tonight's program will be rebroadcast on TV, Channel 2, 702 for the next several weeks. So this concludes our forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters. Thanks again for all the league members that are here helping tonight. Thanks to the audience and those viewing on TV. Thanks for joining us. You make the decisions that affect the leaders you elect. Make the decisions that affect you. I hope you've learned more about the candidates who are willing to serve you. So now it's up to all of us to get out and vote on November 6th. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.